Let's now welcome in James Olley to discuss the interview. We've still got Kieran and Stuart with us as well. James, he struggled to establish himself at first at Chelsea, but are we now seeing Madueke's emergence?
Yeah, I think so. And Kay, I think what sort of struck me about spending some time with him, he's one of those players who he doesn't shy away from comparing himself against some of the top players in the world in his position. So, elsewhere in that interview, he was talking about watching Vinicius Junior and Mbappe and Cristiano Ronaldo when he was a little bit younger, and Arjen Robben as well, which I thought was one slightly out of left field, again, when he was a bit younger. But the fact that he wants to sort of openly talk about those players and he likes those players because he said that they were decisive and they entertain the crowd. That's clearly the role that he wants to take on at Chelsea. And I guess if there's been a criticism of Chelsea in the earlier part of the season, it was that a lot of those players weren't really willing to take responsibility, that they weren't prepared to front up in those difficult moments and really try and grab games and seize back the initiative when things went against them. So I think what we've seen in the last sort of 4 or 5 games in particular is a player who's starting to grow in confidence, starting to feel a little bit more comfortable in his role.
That's a good skill set to have, and I think he could learn to play maybe 1 or 2 more possessions across that front three. But not just, as James said, looking at all these great players out with Chelsea that he's looked up to. I think he can look at, and he's been the talk of the town, about what Cole Palmer's done this year as a youngster who's come into Chelsea as somebody who was no surplus to requirements at Man City and really has taken the bull by the horns and has been amazing. But I'm sure young Madueke looks at another young player in Palmer and thinks, I could maybe do a bit of that, or I could do that. I just need to, more confidence, more game time. End product. And I think for Cole Palmer, for example, this season has all been about end product in the final third. Is what can you do for me in the final third? That's why his numbers are so good. So he doesn't have to look out with. He can look from within at what him and 1 or 2 others have done and think, I'm good enough to do that. And maybe as this starts to settle down at Chelsea, we don't know what the turnover of players is going to be in the summer. Hopefully it'll be a sensible recruitment policy, but they have a young squad of players that have gelled together towards the end of the season, and he's been a big part of that. So in terms of talent, he could hold down a place in this side if he's playing well, he's fit enough, and he keeps producing in the final third.
What about you, Kieran? What do you think about this player?
I really like him. I think his potential is frightening. He has something special for sure. Lively players, as Craig says, pace, balance, got a good left foot. He's shown his age a little bit, in my opinion, with some of the off the field antics. So he'll need to figure that out if he wants to really excel. But very, very few players have his capacity, I think, in Europe, I would say. I will go as far to say that the team could be built around him and Palmer if the consistency comes. And it just comes down to whether Chelsea can get the best out of him and whether he can get the best out of himself. But at the moment, it's, after this season, it's obviously been a no, but I think Chelsea are they've shown just enough positives this season, just enough that there could be something there with this team. So I feel like they're gonna stick mainly to their project that they have and see how they fare next season.
James, it's obviously been a difficult season for Chelsea. So how would a 6th place finish be viewed?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. I think what we've seen with Pochettino's public statements in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks in particular is that I think he's starting to get a bit frustrated with the lack of clarity about that precise question. What do I need to do? How am I going to be judged? Am I going to be here next season? And he made a point the other week about sort of saying, well, when we come to sit down and determine this, I also have an input into this, right? It's not just a case of, are the owners happy? Does the club want to keep me? It's also a case of, do we want to stay and have the promises that we've been made when we came in, have they been kept? And look, I mean, I think we all know Pochettino's quite a big flirt. He's always been like that. I remember when he was Tottenham manager and they were playing Real Madrid, he was conducting sort of additional interviews above the sort of contractually obliged stuff with any Spanish media who wanted to talk to him. It was pretty obvious what he was doing at the time. So there's always a little bit of that with Pochettino. But my understanding of the situation is that the owners are split over whether they keep him. And I think that is explaining why Pochettino's just got a little bit more publicly frustrated about all of the questions that are coming his way about next season and planning and whether they've done enough. I mean, I think you have to say 6th place in August is not good enough. But from February, when they lost at home to Wolves, and he's been talking today about how he felt that was the lowest point of his season, they've won, I think they've lost 1 in 14 Premier League games since then. So from that position, it's actually pretty good. But you've got to view it through the prism of the £1 billion spend and the season targets he was given in August, and they have fallen short. There's no doubt about that, really.
What do you think, Robbo? Does he deserve to stay on at Chelsea?
I think he just about deserves it, but there's reasons why he's been questioned, because when he came to Southampton, there was a clear way he wanted to play. You know, he changed Southampton's style of football as soon as he walked in the door. When he went to Spurs, he changed the way they played, and you could see exactly what they were trying to do when it was pressing the ball, they were playing at high intensity, all those sort of things. I expect him to do the same when he came to Chelsea, and it's taken him a long, long time to get patterns of play, to get up, to understand exactly what they're trying to do. There were times when they were playing with the ball round the back, no penetration, no pace in their game, and I didn't understand what he was trying to do. When you look at a team, you should see the manager's stamp on it. And for half the season, I didn't see any stamp from Pochettino. Maybe now he's starting to get his messages across and he's started to change the way the Chelsea players are playing. But I think he deserves to stay on that little bit longer. But I don't think it's been a great season for him. No way.
Do you agree he deserves to stay on?
Yeah, I certainly would keep Pochettino on to start next season, given the end to this season. And at least they've been able to find some consistency in their football. And for that reason alone, I certainly would start. And kind of given Chelsea's history over the last last season and a half under Ted Boehly ownership, there needs to be some kind of stability around the football club. I think Pochettino is a very good manager, and his past bodies of work have shown that, including under a difficult owner in Daniel Levy. Maybe the PSG experience apart, but I think part of the issues around PSG are born higher up, and their cultural issues within that club. But then you can see those exact similarities with Todd Boehly and what we've seen with Chelsea under his ownership. But they need to have some consistency. And if Pochettino is backed, I think he gets it right more times than not. Pochettino may very well be exactly what Todd Boehly needs to just get this club to settle down and get them on some kind of a path.
I think it's a tad concerning if I was an ardent Chelsea fan that at boardroom level they still seem to be flapping around over decision making, because by God they've made enough bad decisions to last a lifetime already in their time at this club, and so you know I'm on board as well with. I think if they'd finished the season, and James mentioned how they've been in much better form, I think if there hadn't been an uptick, I think he's probably gone. But because they've had that uptick, he can at least sell, if he wants to, that is. If he feels that they're not just going to go out, I don't know how much they're going to be restricted, they probably are, by needing to sell players to get players in with the profit and sustainability. But we saw a ridiculous conveyor belt of player after player after player just coming in. As long as there's some coherent strategy, and they want him to stay and he's seeing that, I don't see any point in making a change. And I think his selling point would be, look how we've started to turn things around with a little bit of patience. But again, the way this club has been run since the takeover, who knows which way they're going to go. But I certainly think he's done enough in this 4 or 5 months to take them into next season.
OK. James, thanks so much for being with us and giving us an update on everything at Chelsea. We've got more of James's interviews from Chelsea coming up in the coming weeks on ESPN FC, so be sure to check them out, including his latest article on ESPN FC tomorrow.